good to be here. And so it's going to be a little bit different, but he is going to talk. He's fine, and he's going to get his turn. But I want to tell you that when we walk in here, it's just like coming home. Some of you, we started at this church. We came home from the Philippines and started in a Samaritan class. We don't look quite the same. And no, we've all changed quite a bit, and we all did Awana together, raised our families together, and the Samaritans stayed together, and here you are. So it's great to be here. So thank you for your interest in our ministry and your care for us, and for letting us come and tell you what God's doing. Our role has changed in the last year, two maybe. When we started out, and it's been 20 years ago, that we started doing missions in the former Soviet Union. And our task at that point was training leaders from existing churches in Russia and other countries to run Christian camps in existing camps that were left after the wall fell. So our job was training. And since Bob's job at Hume over all those years was programming, he was the one that wrote all of the materials for all the training for how you're going to run a camp. And another campman from Canada wrote materials for the administrative side, because the camp was like a big resort. There's so much that you deal with. And so those manuals, those papers on teaching, books now, are still all there. But it's been years since we've taught them, because we taught them, and then they wanted to teach it, and now we're probably, 4 or 5 generations down. They have no idea who we are, but they teach how to run Christian camps. So there's these little camps with programs that would be like Hume Lake without any facilities like Hume Lake, of course, but they teach the gospel. And they are so creative at this point. They have learned how to write their own program manuals and be creative with all of the programs. And God continues to use it to the point that we actually have no real recent statistics of how many Christian camps there are. Last we knew there were 1,000 to 1,300, perhaps 1,500. And they come under the umbrella of Christian Camping International. So there is somebody that actually watches over what they're teaching, and we know that the gospel is being preached. And Bob's going to tell you a little bit about that organization in a little while. But what we want to do is tell you about some of the people, because our role has changed, where we're not actually doing the teaching in most cases. What has happened is in each of our ministries, in each of these different locations where camps have started, and now the people have started other ministries, there's orphan ministries, shelter ministries, all kinds of different things. There's always people, there's always somebody that comes forward, a leader, a godly couple, something like that. And we want to tell you about a few of those, because our role at this point really is more mentoring, coming alongside, encouraging, helping them to be, to create the next thing. How are they going to get there? Helping them with businesses so that they can be self-supporting, so that they are not dependent on somebody else for the programs that they're running. And so that is a really great place to be. And I love that. And I had my first opportunity last November to go to Mongolia. I couldn't have told you where Mongolia was. And we ended up in Mongolia. And it's a wonderful God story how we even got there. But the people that I met were amazing. Jargal and Duya, perhaps you have some grandchildren named that someday, are a wonderful godly couple who are leading our ministries there. And so Bob's going to tell you a little bit about Mongolia, and we're going to show you video.
This might become our pattern every time we speak. I like that. I like to sit down and hear this nice introduction. And thank you, Jack, for those kind words. None of them are true, of course, but we did have some great times together and still do. And I'm going to talk about you a little bit later, and it's good. It's good. So Mongolia, it's an odd place when you think about it in the world. It's very different than most Far Eastern countries. And how did we get there? Well, to start with, Sharon mentioned about our training seminars. We've always done what we call entry-level people into Christian camping because, as Sharon mentioned, when the Soviet Union fell, there were 38,000 camps that were a part of their education department. So our job, as we were sent there by Hume Lake at the very beginning, and that's a long story, but that kind of got us our heads into what's happening there. And instead of working with the government in Russia, we started working with this other Christian guy, camp leader from Canada. And we did entry-level training seminars, and we would have between 35 people and 1,300 people. All kinds of seminars, and we ran them all over the former Soviet Union. There's 18 countries, probably about 10 of them we majored in. So today we have 3 levels of seminars, and we still teach in the 3rd level, but the 2nd level is people who've now done camping for a few years. They have a few staff, usually they're a summer facility. And then the 3rd level are full-blown ministries like a Hume Lake, but obviously not as big. But with multi-staff, some with as many as 70 staff workers, and then all the way down to small ones. But we call it our advanced level leadership training course. And Rudy Duke, our German teaching partner from Germany and raised in Russia, so he's fluent in Russian, he and I started doing these advanced, and we've done probably over 1,000 pastors in this 3-year course, and church leaders and camp leaders that now have multi-level staff ministries beyond just the summer camps, where they're doing orphan work, almost any kind of a parachurch organization. Some of these camp people have started on it. We have at least 12 businesses going that are like the Apostle Paul, tent maker type businesses, and Sharon mentioned a little bit about that. So these advanced leadership training, Rudy Duke and I were in Siberia, and it's a 3-year course, 10 days, twice a year, for 3 years. And we were teaching one in Siberia. We've done several there. Anyway, Siberia is 3 times the size of America. Big place. So you're talking from the top to the bottom, and the sides, it's 11 time zones in all of Russia. 11 time zones. Big place. So we're teaching in Siberia on Lake Baikal, which flows into Mongolia. And we had a Mongolian pastor there who graduated from our 3-year course. And he said, you have got to come down to Mongolia and teach. We've got a bunch of pastors who've never been to seminary. They accepted the Lord. They were drunks on the street. And this ministry found them, but you've got to help us train them. So we went there. We taught our 3 years. And it was just a real pleasure. I don't know if you realize that at one time, Genghis Khan controlled 1/3 of the world's population. So they have this rich history, very interesting history, that goes way back to the 12th and 13th century when Genghis Khan was dominating most of Europe and all the way through Asia. And every American Indian, every Eskimo, every Korean, and other countries have on their back a spot that's called the Mongolian spot, because they all came from Mongolian seeds somewhere. Mongolia has had an incredible influence. Today, there are less than 5 million people in the country, there are more Mongolians living in China below Mongolia than there are in Mongolia. And about 85% of the country is the Gobi Desert. That's the two camels. And so this, what are we going to do in Mongolia? And so we went down there and we met these pastors and their wives, and they're wonderful people who wanted to learn. 3 years later, they graduated, wrote on the board their plan for reaching the country of Mongolia. And they set the goal of 100 churches in 10 years, and this has been about 3 years ago, and there's more than 30 churches new that have been planted as a result of these guys and their wives. And there's lots of stories we could tell you on the sides about this. But it's a pleasure to be there. We just finished a marriage and family conference Sharon talked about, and it was a really, really special time. They told us when we finished teaching, they said, "We don't want you ever to teach this here again. We're going to be teaching it." And within 2 weeks, they had another marriage seminar with all of our notes. And of course, that's the goal of missions everywhere, is training the nationals to do it. And that's what we're telling you about. We've seen, I can't even tell you the number, but we probably have at least 3,000 trained leaders in Russia, probably 2,000 really well-trained people in Ukraine, and then we spend time in 8 different countries in different time zones, and then there are other people that come in. So when you do training, you just multiply yourself. I like to say that when I was at Biola University living off campus, one of my roommates was Larry Jordan, one of the 3 founders of Amway Corporation. And you talk about a multi-marketing, I'm not selling Amway, by the way. You talk about multi-level marketing. Well, what we've done in Christian camping is no glory to us, you know. God put us there at the right time and with the right background to make a difference, and then you take one step at a time and see what God's going to do. So, back to Mongolia. Here we are today. We have one lead pastor couple that Sharon talked about, Jargal and Duya, and they are such dear people. They have such a passion for their people, and they lead all of this group, these pastors association, and they're planting churches all over the country. So we, along the way, in our 3-year training, talked to these pastors about starting Christian camps. And they're really fun-loving people. And so we thought, no, camps are really going to go here. And they decided they were going to start with a big tent camp. They rented a tent from China, brought it in, and you're going to see a video right now. Video. Okay, wake up back there. There he is. Video. He's ready to go, by the way. He is sharp. And I spoke at Biola University Alumni Association last Sunday morning, and they didn't know how to get that piece of flash drive going, and I couldn't believe it. And I come in here, and in 30 seconds, he's got it in, gives me my flash drive back, it's all ready to go. And he knows what he's doing. Anyway, hang on just a second. And so this video they produced after I told them how to do this camp. They did the camp, but when they set the date, I already had engagements in other countries I had to be at, and I couldn't be there for this first one. We're going to be at the next one. But the first one, so they did this, and they made this video with a drone. They made their very first video, and it's a thank you video for you and for us. For you have been praying for us and sending us for all these years. This is a thank you video to you. And Doya will be the one who's dancing, a little bit older, and a lot of energy. You'll see Doya, and you'll see Jargo. He's the main good-looking Mongolian man that's a preacher, and they're in this video. So we're not in the video because this was sent to us as a thank you to you and to us. You cut those lights on the hill. Those men are Greco-Roman wrestlers. They won the Olympic gold in the last Olympics in this sport. Next summer we need to do this at Hume Lake.
We cannot love somebody because we are not willing to give our selfishness away.
이거는 다시 가야하고 가야하고 있죠. 아직도
That river comes right out of Siberia. It's about 45 degrees. These are our kids. These leaders are our kids. It's fun to watch them, isn't it? 262 people came to Christ. It took 5 pastors 2 hours to baptize them all. Next year, we're going to have probably 2,000 people under one camp there. I want to just tell you about a couple other people in different countries. I'm going to tell you about Yuli and Ina Morozov in the heart of Ukraine, about 50 miles from where the war zone is. When these 2 boys were 18 and 17 years old, I was speaking at their camp that their mother was running. We had trained her to run a camp, and they're very musical. We got together, we did music together, and it was so fun to watch these boys grow up along with their sister who was younger, and eventually through our advanced leadership training thing, they started their own camps. And now today we have probably our biggest ministry of any other place of all of the countries. We have 17 different locations where we have different ministries. That wouldn't be me if I didn't choke up sometimes, right? And to see what God has done through these, especially these 2 young men. Now they're in their mid-30s. We have at least 70 staff, hundreds of volunteers, do camp ministries, all kinds of clubs like English classes, dance classes, computer training classes, and so many other different kinds of things. We actually have a clown school. It's designed to train clowns to go into hospitals to entertain kids, all to share the gospel, of course, and so many other things. But one of the biggest things that's happening there is about 8 years ago, we built a covered soccer field that is maybe 15 or 20 times the size of this room, so it's not a whole soccer field, but it's totally covered. You know, churches that have like a tent top, it's like that. You can't stab it with a knife. We spent $85,000 and put this thing up with AstroTurf, and it's going almost day and night, year-round now. But the amazing thing is we have 6 levels of soccer, they call it football, different leagues, just under the pro level, and we have things going on all the time with soccer football. And the guy that leads this thing, we put him through a special school, which you have to do in Russia and Ukraine to let them coach kids. They have to have different level training all the way up to the Olympic level. We put him through the whole thing, took 3 years, and he is so evangelistic. He leads kids to Christ every day, all the way from little kids, street teams, to big fields. Now here's an amazing thing. The city came to us about 2 years ago and said, we have a soccer stadium that has to go to someone who does things for the public in sports. They didn't want a big developer to come in and build high-rise buildings. And we are buying it today for $32,000. The whole thing, stadium, locker rooms, field, track around it, and all of that. It's just an amazing thing. So we have about half of it raised right now, by the way, if you want to chip in. Jack will probably get 10,000 after we're done here. I'm not sure. And I want to tell you that this one ministry that does orphan work, they're doing work for handicapped kids and all kinds of other amazing things. They actually have a ministry to gypsies. There's a gypsy city near them. And they're some of the poorest, most depressed people on earth. And they have a ministry there. You know, Samaritans First Christmas boxes, they've done their own version where they have their local people that don't usually give to anything, and they're giving to these boxes. It's an amazing
accepted Christ. Bob had the opportunity to lead her to Christ. She was 12 years old at the time, along with a number of her teammates. And through the years, you've heard about these girls, and they have run different sports ministries all along. She met at one of our training seminars, Pasha, and married him. He was a professional soccer player, handsome, charming, passionate for the Lord. And this young couple, who now have two darling little boys, have started a ministry to refugees, which now has become a big thing in Kiev. So many refugees from the Crimea and other areas that have been affected by the Russian invasion on that side of their country. And so they are doing refugee ministry there, and they also do camps for orphans. They're very involved in the camping program, and beside that, they work in our sports ministry, kids, leagues. All of it with such a heart for evangelism. They sent us a picture, it's probably been about 6 months ago, of their 5-year-old son, Stefan, and he's out with his dad, Pasha. They're on the street, and he's doing evangelism. I mean, Dad said it's time. You know, he's 5 now. He needs to understand what. And they've got such a heart for the Lord. These are the people that are the result of years of training, and that God has just put his hand on. And it's so exciting for us just to be there to encourage and support them. They live in a difficult situation. Very small salaries. They live in a 1-bedroom apartment with these 2 little boys. But they love the Lord, and they serve him with their whole heart. Oh, one more I want to tell you about, Svetlana. And for those of you who get our updates, our emails, and things like that, you probably recognize the name. And I think years ago, when I spoke to your ladies group, I talked about this young gal. She's single, mid-30s probably, and has such a heart for orphans that it is amazing. She's Ukrainian. She's a missionary to Russia. And that means that she has to come out of Russia every 6 months, isn't it? Or 6 months? And be in Ukraine. I mean, they make it very hard for her, but she's in Siberia. There are 21 orphanages around the city of Kars, and that's where she lives. And they're all government-run, state-run orphanages. And she has a ministry in each of these. And how much she can say depends on the director in each of these orphanages at any given time. But she has built relationships with specific kids in each of these orphanages. And then she brings them out, which is, the kids can leave after they're about 10 with a token for a bus to her house once a week, and she teaches them the Bible. By the time these kids leave, she has them connected not only to the Lord, but to church and connection so they're not lost once the orphanage says, you're 18, you're done, or you finish school, and they're out on the street for the mafia or whoever to pick them up. And so her ministry is just amazing. She is in the Far East part, the worst part of Siberia in the winter. She runs camps way back in where there's not even roads. They drive on ice. All kinds of conditions that are just unbelievable. But she has such a heart for these kids. And we're just so grateful for her.
Orphan ministries have become a big part of what our people do because they're orphanages in all the former Soviet Union. Most of the parents are living, but they're perpetually drunk. And when the kids are found on the streets, they put them there, and the parents never in their life check on them. I mean, it's an amazing situation. That's why you hear about so many orphanages there. So we have a project right now in Ukraine. We have a whole other ministry with about 200 volunteers and 7 full-time staff in Ukraine that works just with orphanages. And we're trying to specialize one part of this with handicapped orphans. Special needs orphans. And Oksana's goal is to prove to the Russian and the Ukrainian government that these children are not a mistake in God's eyes. That's her words. So we have about $1 million project right now to build a facility. Now it's down to about 1/3 of that, as we found out we can get part of it free. So we got big plans for that, and we're working in that area now. So much you could say about different ministries, sports ministries. We have a lady, Irina Badre, found the Lord in a girls' high school basketball camp, one of our camps. She's an attorney. Now she's taken over all of our sports things. We are FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, now in Ukraine. They came to us and said, you have all these things going on, can we join you? And then they have lots of things we can utilize, their organizational things, training things. Anyway, that's another story, another time. I want to tell you real quick about Volodya Shevchenko. In 1991, he was the first interpreter that worked with our partner, Dave Lowen from Canada. And all these years, we have been very close to him, even though he hasn't been our interpreter. We have somebody else who did that at the beginning. But now God has raised him up, and we've been so close to him, trying to get him to catch the vision of being the main person there. And in the last probably 5 years, he's really caught that vision. And all of these camp training seminars that we talked about at the beginning are under his wing now. And this summer, they've had more than 25 seminars just in Ukraine and a couple of the satellite countries, Moldova, and so forth. So I just want you to know that this is another guy that we haven't talked about much, but if you're praying for somebody and you've got us on your prayer list, his name is Volodya, and he's doing some amazing, wonderful things, and we praise God for him. So as you can see, we have 17 people, I think I mentioned it, that we pay monthly, that we have social media contact with all the time. Almost every day we have contact with people. I go out and we go out, we do marriage and family training seminars to staff in different places. And then we have this contact, and I go out and I do strategic planning with some of them working with their business. So that's why our ministries have changed quite a bit. I'm saying now all of us here are in a different time of our lives where it's easy to become a little bit depressed and say, well, it's all over for me and I can't accomplish much anymore. And I'm here to tell you that I believe the exact opposite is true. And here's why. We have the advantage of viewing God from the rear view mirror. We have all this history about how God has been faithful to us in our lives. Young people, young pastors, they don't have that. And we have to let these people know and be active witnesses of the faithfulness of God. We can do that. And through our prayers, we can be so effective. But I've just completed writing a book. It's in Ukraine right now being printed. And it's called 5 Fishermen. Some of you know I've had a fishing business in Alaska for 33 years. And this has only taken me 1 to 3 weeks a summer for all these years. But it's a fish guiding business. So in a sense, I'm a professional fisherman because they pay $5,000 a piece to come with me. And it cost me about $4,500. So $500 from each person goes into our mission work. And when our kids were younger, it was sending our kids to Bible college or whatever. But because of that, I have the heart of a fisherman, and I've always, since I was a young boy, as a fisherman, looked at Peter, Andrew, James, and John in a different way than every sermon I've ever heard about the call, drop your nets and follow me. So I've written this book from the view of a professional fisherman about dropping your nets and going fishing, but fishing for men. So the 5 fishermen are Peter, Andrew, James, John, and me, or you. And I have a copy of the cover on the back, and the back page, which is a picture of me standing over my grandson, and then the chapters that are there. They all relate to fishing, but when I'm talking about fishing, it also relates to being a personal evangelist. It's my belief that because of the faithfulness of God in our lives, we have the opportunity, but the byline of the book is, you'll never catch a fish unless you throw your line out. And so many people in churches that we speak in or visit are happy just being in the church when we believe God wants us all to be fishermen. Now, I have probably the gift of evangelism because I'm able to lead lots of people to Christ. Last 3 plane flights I've been on, 2 of them have accepted Christ. One lady flying from back east to Denver and then on the route with me was brought into the plane. She was kind of feeble, and I said, "Are you all right?" And she says, "I'm dying. I have no hope." And I believe that if you have your antenna up and if you're ready to throw your line out, God is going to bring people to you. And that's one thing I was going to say about Jack. Jack is one of the guys, Kent Ford, Billy Graham, Jack Hanna, and a few others that I know every day are throwing their line out somewhere. That's what this book is about. Why am I crying? I don't know. So you might have noticed on the back that we have those little bookmarkers, and it's a Bible bookmarkers. Be sure to take one. On that is our email address. If you would like one of these books, it would probably be 6 or 8 weeks before we get them back here in the States. I think it'll be very interesting read for you, even if you've never liked fishing. You're gonna enjoy the book. And so email us your mailing address as clear as you can type. Class and drop it off. That might even be easier. But we'd still like your address, and respond to us if you want one of those books. So I think our time is up, and I just want to emphasize how much we have appreciated the support of this class in a very personal way from lots of you. And it means so much to us. This is not, all these things, we've had hundreds of thousands of people come to Christ in these camps. We don't even know how many. 10 years ago, we took a survey, and it was about 300,000. And it's nothing due to us. It's all glory to God. One of the chapters in the book is about living in God's space. And God's space is after you've done all your abilities, all your talents, everything you know to do, then you trust God for beyond that, and that's God's space. And that's where everything you've heard about has happened here. Praise God. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob and Sharon. Mark and Julie Norton were back here just a minute ago. They must have left. But if you see them today down on the plaza, just make sure you say hi to them. So let's go ahead and close with prayer. Lord, we thank you this morning for your love for us. We thank you for the ministry of Bob and Sharon Hilts for so many years of accumulate with our children, and now their ministry in several parts of the world. And we just thank you for their passion, for the way that they reach out and they throw that fishing line out every day, and look for those fish out there that need to know you. And thank you for doing that for each one of us and giving us the opportunities to find those that need to know you as well. Thank you for our time this morning, and give us a great day, and help us to remember that you are the one that gave us this great country of ours, and help us to celebrate that and to tell those around us that you are still in control no matter what it looks like in the news. And what a neat testimony this morning in that video. You never hear things like that on the normal news media of what's going on around the world. Thank you for that encouragement today. And we thank you for all these things in Jesus' name. One more song? Okay, one more patriotic song and then we'll go.
Number 10 in your books there, America. Number 10. Stand up. That'd be great. My country